Good morning, Bird Bros. Today's video is one I actually started scripting nearly 2 years ago, but I only got around to finishing it today. Since Shane Dawson has resurfaced, I'd like to get into how and why Shane became so popular to begin with from a more psychological perspective. If you're looking for an exposed video, I've linked my old one in the description, but this video is more for unveiling how Shane manipulates his audience and his intentions behind doing so. Grab some popcorn and enjoy as we dive deep into the mind of one of YouTube's biggest creators, Shane Dawson. Shane Dawson was loved by so many and for so long despite the constant trail of controversy and destruction behind him. Since the beginning of Shane's YouTube career, up until about 2020, Shane has always had a steady number of loyal fans willing to vouch not only for the quality of his content, but also his personality. So why is it that YouTubers with much less controversy than Shane have been pressured into leaving the platform altogether, yet until 2020, Shane faced almost zero repercussions? I think there's more than one factor to this, so we'll go over every aspect of why Shane was so successful and how it created a sort of internet immunity bubble around Shane until recently. Although Shane is no longer setting the trends as he once was, he's always managed to keep up with them.
When I started YouTube, I was using so many celebrities in my thumbnails and titles. Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus.
This, as we all know, helps the longevity of a YouTube channel. Back in 2008, when Shane created his channel, YouTube wasn't the same platform that it is today. The demonetization system didn't exist, being cancelled wasn't even a thought at the back of anyone's mind, and you could truly create whatever you wanted and have it be enjoyed. Better times, right? In 2008, the type of content that was particularly popular was comedy-based skits and song parodies. Other channels, such as Smosh or Fred, were already popular for doing similar types of skits, so Shane figured he could make that type of content and get popular. And he did. As I mentioned before, cancel culture didn't really exist at the time, so you could make edgy jokes and no one would bat an eye. I'm okay with most jokes, and personally, for the most part, I don't have as much of an issue with some of Shane's old jokes as a lot of people do. However, something like this?
Hey, what's up you guys? Yes, it is me, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. How fly do I look? I mean, really. Cuckoo!
Clearly wouldn't fly on today's YouTube, but nobody cared back then. As soon as his type of humor became less acceptable, he changed it. If you check Shane's channel, the oldest video is from 2014, and it's an apology for his edgy jokes. He completely wiped the existence of what his content used to be from his channel. After this, Shane moved on to making those clickbaity challenge videos, tag videos, and just general reaction videos on whatever was popular at any given time. It was generally inoffensive and based almost entirely on trends. Personally, I think this was his most boring era in regards to actual content. In the middle of all the clickbait, Shane began dipping his toes into making conspiracy content, which he would then make more and more of as time went on. In late 2017 to early 2018, Shane changed his content once again, leaning towards the niche of vlogging and becoming a little less clickbaity with some of his vlogs. Later in 2018, with his TanaCon series, Shane for the first time not only started consistently talking about drama, but involving himself with it. After this, and up until the current day, his videos consisted of documentaries on incredibly controversial YouTubers, typically attempting to show their side of the story and make the audience sympathize with them. Each of these changes in Shane's channel came not from his own interest, but with what was popular at the time on YouTube. Even the thumbnails really represent each era of YouTube. However, if you're going to follow trends, your subscribers must like your personality and care about you specifically as your content changes. Personality. This is a huge portion of the reason that Shane's gotten so much slack. But why is that? What about Shane's personality draws people in and keeps them there? One of the many traits that people are drawn to is Shane's sort of insecure but confident persona. Shane comes across as humble, but not necessarily pity-seeking. He constantly shits on himself for things like his weight.
Yeah, like dance!
My ass is too big to
Oh, yeah. That's literally what my legs looked like when I was 18. That's it. Those are it.
Or his personality.
But I feel like it could turn out to be actually really mind-opening, or it'll send me into a crazy dark depression and I'll just delete my channel.
And the audience could possibly relate, but if not, they can at least see him as an underdog and have this inexplicable urge to root for him and want to see him succeed. This is especially true when it looks like he's been improving in any aspect of his life, even if he's not actually making any progress in reality. However, despite the constant insecurity, jokes about his mental health, weight, and other struggles, he also comes across somehow as confident. I believe the perceived confidence comes from the professional quality of most of his videos and how extroverted he appears to be. Extroverts are typically seen as more confident in my personal experience, when in reality, Shane is just as anxious as the rest of us. However, with a mix of insecurity and confidence, he comes across as humble and empathetic, when in reality, all he is most likely is emotionally inconsistent. Shane seems kind. It seems as though he's constantly trying to help someone else out, especially in his recent documentaries, in which he tries to give a voice to those that others aren't willing to listen to. And while it may have turned out well for Tana and Jake Paul, such was not the case for someone else Shane made a documentary about, Eugenia Cooney. For those of you who don't know, here's a quick TLDR on Eugenia. Eugenia is known online for struggling with an eating disorder for an extended period of time without recovering, someone who genuinely needs help. On the outside, it may seem like Shane was trying to get her help, but this is simply not true. If anything, Shane's documentary on her actually put her in more danger than she's ever been. Eugenia not only did not improve at all, but since Shane's documentary was painted in such a light that she had, less people are concerned for her health. And they should be. Shane just wanted to be seen as a hero and make some AdSense. If he really wanted to get her help, he'd get her actual and continuous help instead of making a video on her then never speaking about it again. And think about it. Eugenia knew from day one Shane wasn't going to help her get better, or push her to do anything she didn't want to. Do you know how I know that? Jacqueline Glenn, someone who is incredibly close with Eugenia, managed to get her committed after months of planning in a desperate attempt to get someone she loved help. She didn't do it for attention online, she did it because she saw someone she loved suffering and wanted to see her get better. The only reason she came out with the story at all, much later, was to show how much of a problem Shane's video was. Eugenia now refuses to speak with Jacqueline or anyone else involved with that. So, someone actually helping Eugenia gets the silent treatment, but somebody who's not going to push her to get better gets to stay. It fits. Another example I'd like to bring up here is that of Bobby Burns. Shane essentially scooped Bobby up, made tons of money off content about him, and then just kinda abandoned him and left him to rot. Let me explain the story of Bobby Burns to you, because I feel like it exemplifies perfectly what I'm trying to say here. Shane discovered Bobby after Bobby made a video essentially calling Shane out for some of the various things that he ended up actually getting canceled for later down the line, such as blackface. Shane then made a video reacting to Bobby's video, although he would only show and reply to the most harmless criticisms, and not the more problematic issues such as the blackface. Another very clear choice Shane made was calling Bobby a hater instead of a commentator to make him seem less credible. Small word choices like this were thought out in depth by Shane in order to maximize the narrative in his favor. Having someone as large as Shane make a response video obviously put Bobby in an uncomfortable spot, and one where he himself was receiving hatred. In my opinion, this made Bobby more vulnerable for what would happen next. Shane then reached out to Bobby and asked if he'd like to collab. Bobby agreed, but Shane basically used this collab to convince his audience that Bobby was actually just a jealous, misunderstood fan and not a hater. By doing this, although Shane's fans would now empathize more with Bobby, completely invalidated Bobby's meaningful criticisms in the eyes of most fans. This was Shane's way of sweeping his controversies under the rug. Shane then went on to exploit Bobby for content with videos such as buying my hater a car and hater confronts my mom, which not only gained Shane monetary rewards from his view count, but also put Bobby in his shadow so that if Bobby were to ever try and leave Shane's side, his channel would be completely crippled. Shane also looked like a saint for making these videos, as these comments show.
Shane is so kind and honestly one of the realest YouTubers out there now, and it's so sad that some people judge instead of trying to be understanding like Shane is.
Shane, I think you're incredibly talented, humble, genuine, and kind. The fact that you had positive things about this kid speaks volumes.
I really like how Shane actually tries to take the time and see the good in people, even someone that made a hate video about him. He's so inspiring, honestly.
How does Shane have the ability to actually see the good in people? God, he truly is precious.
Shane, you're such an angel. Like, you're too good for this world, and it makes me feel bad because it seems like that kindness and purity about you makes you more vulnerable to manipulation. Which, by the way, it's ironic to hear Bobby call you a manipulator, knowing how he manipulated you.
Videos like this are part of why a lot of people were drawn to Shane. He seems charitable until you take a look at his internal motivations. The way this story plays out for Bobby proves that Shane never had Bobby's best interests in mind and only wanted to look good in the public eye. There's also a reason Shane chose to confront Bobby specifically, despite having tons of haters. It's clear Shane carefully researched Bobby's channel prior to filming, and realized that Bobby had a bit of a nervous personality, and more importantly, that Bobby had been a fan of Shane's content in the past. Shane knew that these elements combined would lead to less of a confrontation, and more of Bobby folding due to anxiety and the power imbalance. I don't like throwing around the phrase power imbalance, as it's often misused, but Bobby was a smaller, younger creator being confronted in Shane's house by multiple people. That's a very skewed dynamic. The reason Shane chose a previous fan was so that he could wrongfully spread the narrative that all of his haters were secretly jealous superfans, so that he could invalidate their genuine criticisms of him. After Shane's mini hater series on Bobby, he offered to help Bobby move to LA and work for him, which gave him even more control over both Bobby and his narrative. Due to this, the majority of Bobby's fan base became Shane's fans. Unfortunately for Bobby, since Shane's fans didn't like commentary, Bobby was somewhat forced to switch the genre of his channel to be more like Shane's. Because of this, not only was Bobby's creativity and potential destroyed, but if he were to ever speak out about Shane, his audience would despise him. Due to vlogging not being Bobby's strong suit, his videos were not particularly well received. After merely a few months, Shane noticed this and explained in a video that while their weekly collabs would no longer be happening, they would still do lots of things together. However, after this, they almost never interacted again. At this point, Bobby was stuck in a new city with a failing channel and no one to fall back on, simply because he was no longer useful to Shane. Bobby then had his own channel fall through and lost his house and girlfriend. It's very clear that Bobby would be much better off had he never met Shane. So looking back on Shane's kindness for Bobby, do you not think if Shane truly had pure intentions, that he would have helped him out when he needed it most instead of doing everything he could to get everyone to forget he existed? Not only is Shane's kindness not entirely what it seems, but possibly his remorse. Every few years, Shane makes some sort of video or book or twit longer discussing his past, bad things he's done, bad places he's been, and how badly he feels about it all and how much he's changed. But if you're really making the same video about the same past every other year, have you really changed at all? I know on YouTube it's somewhat normal to make apology videos or whatever, but Shane has such a high volume of content speaking about his past compared to any other YouTuber I've seen. Sometimes the context isn't even apologetic. I'm gonna play a clip from my friend iNabber's video that I feel exemplifies this.
Shane Dawson in a book, basically admitting that he created an account of a younger woman called Carol, of where he basically had the revenge idea of getting 18+ images from some of his schoolmates so he could post it around his entire school to get revenge. Yeah, that's a real thing that Shane Dawson actually admitted to. That night, I logged back onto MySpace. How could I use their interests against them? What did they like to do? Well, from our chat that day, I discovered that they loved drugs, animal abuse, and hooking up with girls from AIM. Then it hit me like an 18-wheeler through a school hallway. I could pretend to be a girl on AIM and ruin their lives. But then yes, he went onto Google and said he found pictures which he searched up with high school girl horse sluts and used some random girl to do this. My plan was to get the most unflattering picture of the kids, well, you know what, and printed out hundreds of them and post them around the school the next day.
I know most people who've been bullied have probably fantasized about humiliating their classmates in one way or another, likely to a much lesser degree than this, but most people don't actually go through with this, and though Shane may not have gone all the way through, he still started with this plan, which is concerning. And sure, he was in high school, and we all make mistakes, and that's fine. However, in this book, it doesn't seem like he finds any issues with what he did, even now. In both his first and second Jeffree Star series, Shane repeats the cycle of pretending to be humble and that he's grown, while simultaneously attempting to redeem himself in Jeffree Star by painting themselves as the underdogs. This actually leads to my next point. As much as we hate to admit it, most of us can probably relate to Shane in at least one aspect or another. I know I did. I always saw Shane as kind of a mediator, someone who wanted everyone to get along in his friend groups, and I can relate to that in my own life. I can also relate to his mental illness to an extent, among other things. When someone comes across as super vulnerable and relatable, you see enough of yourself in them that you subconsciously feel as though if you judge Shane, you'd have to judge yourself as well.
Based on his views, he's making fucking bank.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you there, Bobby. I don't know if you've heard about something called apocalypse, but the meteor has hit my house and my house is on fire.
In this clip, Shane is pretending to not be as rich as he is in order to seem more down to earth and relatable, when in reality he was making millions. Despite all this, Shane likes to portray himself as a silly little idiot who couldn't possibly know what he's doing is wrong. I understand if you're dumb once or twice, sure, but when he's constantly in the same situations, you'd have to assume that after a while he would know better. If Shane was truly as socially inept as he claims, he wouldn't even think to lie about those things. One example is Shane claims a lot of his videos aren't scripted, but if you actually make content, give his videos a watch, it's incredibly obvious that they are. There are too many miracle coincidences for them to be unplanned. There's absolutely nothing wrong with scripting. In fact, this video that you guys are all watching right now is scripted. But he hides the fact that he scripts because he wants to seem less calculated so that you're less likely to suspect him of manipulation in other aspects of his life. I'm again going to bring up him lying about being affected by the adpocalypse and pretending not to be so immensely rich. There's no need to lie about this. Shane is a broken person, and instead of spending time picking up the pieces, he was too focused on YouTube. He let himself get worse and worse and hurt people instead of looking inwards and saying, hey, maybe this is bad for me. I don't know if Shane is necessarily malicious or just self-centered and confused. I think Shane should spend a long time offline, for his own sake and everybody else's. I'm not usually one to say someone's done forever, but he has a long way to go before he could ever be a healthy content creator. If you want more of my thoughts on the Shane stuff, I'll link my other video on Shane in the description, where I talk more about the actual controversies themselves. I'm also going to link a few other creators in the description who have made fantastic videos on Shane and that go more into depth on some of the topics I brought up in this video. Please check them out and give them some love and subscribers. I hope this video causes you to think more critically about why you enjoy certain channels, because I think understanding more about why we enjoy the things we enjoy helps us understand more about ourselves. I also just want to say that just because you see someone doing similar behaviors to Shane, it doesn't automatically mean they're being manipulative. A lot of people, dare I say most people, genuinely do have good intentions. I think people like Shane are far and few in between. I don't want this video to breed paranoia or conspiracies about other celebrities, because everybody's different. There's always a possibility I'm wrong about Shane, of course, too, so make sure that however you feel about Shane, it's what you truly feel, not because me or some other YouTuber feels a certain way about him. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe with notifications on, and I will catch you on the flip side.